Events, events, events. I can't tell you how many conversations I have had over the years about we're going to do an event. Uh, what should we do? Oh yeah, we're gonna do an event. We'll be fine, right? As if an event, a fundraising event, is the answer to raising money. It's not. It's part of it. And to engage in fundraising events is a good strategy as long as it's part of a comprehensive fundraising plan. But in this episode, I'm going to talk about the three key elements to having a successful fundraising event and to elevate your major gifts. That is our focus on this episode. Let's huddle up. Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fund Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. Today, I'm diving into something that I often mention in passing in prior episodes. I don't really talk about events as a key component to raising dollars. Yes, it should be part of a comprehensive fundraising plan. But I know a lot of organizations that rely on the success of an event to make sure that they raise the money that they plan to raise that year. Now, events can be weather dependent. And in recent years, we saw events get canceled because of the pandemic, 6 years ago. So it's not a foolproof strategy, but it should be part of an overall plan. Before I get into the three components, I think it's really important for you to understand that when it comes to raising money from an event, that you think about the net. What are you going to raise after expenses, not the gross, because the gross can give you a false sense of success. For example, you might set out to do a gala or golf tournament and you gross $50,000, but your expenses are $40,000. So what did you really raise? You only raised $10,000 and you spent 6 to 8 months planning and executing an event for $10,000. Now, some of you may say, well, that's big for us. That would be great. But there are better ways that you can spend that time to raise $10,000. But if you do what I'm about to share with you, you'll raise way more than that. Now, when you are thinking about doing a fundraising event, speaking of net, it is important, I believe, for your organization to have a policy around events in terms of how much your organization must net from an event. Many years ago, I worked for an organization that had a policy like that. And we didn't do fundraising events unless we can guarantee on paper before the event that we could net $100,000. So now you don't have to go that high, but pick a number. 50 is probably a good place to start. If you can net 50,000, it's probably worth doing. Anything less than that, and you're spending 6 to 8 months planning and executing that event, you probably could have spent that time building relationships with key constituents, making the case, making the ask, and closing the deal, and getting several gifts of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. But I digress. What I want to talk to you today are about the three key components so that you can not only have a successful event and raise a lot of money that goes toward your bottom line, but how it can support major gifts. So let's start with the very first thing. I alluded to it already, and that is having a goal, an actual dollar goal, a net dollar goal for that particular event. So if you're doing a gala or a golf tournament or any other kind of event, you should have a goal. So let's, for the sake of this discussion, let's assume that you're planning a gala and that you're hoping to raise $75,000 after expenses. You want to net 75,000. The very first thing that you're going to do, so the first key component is making sure that you put a plan in place that ensures that you're going to get to $75,000. That means putting together a budget. And that budget should include expenses, obviously, and revenue. Your expenses are going to be the location, the food, the decorations, the entertainment or the speaker. Get all of that information first. Don't plan on going forward and doing this. Do your homework. Don't promise your board that you can move forward with this event. Talk about it and then take the time to do the research and report back. And one of the things that you're going to do is to figure out how much is this going to cost. So after you figure all of that out, and let's say you're going to have this event and you're going to limit it to 200 people, right? How much is food and beverage, drinks if you're going to have them for 200 people? How much is that going to cost? Entertainment, decorations, the space, right? You may have to rent furniture, you may not, whatever that may be, figure it all out. You want no surprises, zero surprises. Get all of that information first. Now you know what your expenses are. Now you know what it's going to cost you to do this event. Let's say, for sake of conversation, that the cost to do everything, speaker, the whole bit included, probably around $80,000, $90,000. Okay. Now, this is where a lot of organizations will go wrong. They'll say, okay, well, great. Do this and, we're going to pay for all this, but we're going to go out and we're going to, sell tickets. We'll get a sponsor or two, and then we'll see how it shakes out in the end. The next thing that you're going to do, and this is the second piece of this puzzle, second key component to a successful fundraising event. When you put the budget together and you figure out how much it's going to cost, let's say it's $80,000, then your job is to find $80,000 of sponsorship revenue before you sell a single ticket. I'm going to say that again. You need to cover all of your expenses through sponsorships before you sell a single ticket. That's a key component. Because when you do that, there's nothing to worry about because everything else that you make is going to be gravy. Now you can set the right price for tickets. Obviously, when it comes to sponsors, there are going to be some tickets that you're going to comp for those sponsors, whether it's a sponsor for the whole event, like a title sponsor, a presenting sponsor, table sponsors. If you're going to do a live or silent auction, there can be an auction sponsor. There could be a speaker sponsor. There are various sponsors that you can create, and you can create. I'm not going to get into the details of creating the sponsorship levels, but your speaker and the caliber of the event, which is dictated by the location, can be very, very helpful because when it comes time to decide on how much you're going to charge per table or per person, you want to make sure the value is comparable to what they're going to get. So get all of your sponsors, all of your expenses paid by sponsors, develop a strategy to create those sponsorship levels and get everything covered. And now you've got $80,000 already paid for, and you haven't even sold a single ticket. Next, now you're going to figure out what you're going to charge. What's your per table charge? What's your per person charge? That's really it. You really table charge per person. Okay. Figure that out and figure out how many tables that you need to sell, and perhaps to get to the 75,000, because that's the goal that you want to net, and goals are minimum, right? So it's a minimum amount. So how much you're going to have to charge per table per person to get to that number with 200 people. Now you may not get there with 200 people. You may need to do a little bit more. This is where an auction can be helpful, both silent and live. But then when you have an auction, now you've got to secure events or items. And it's better to secure items that are donated than to purchase items. And this is where a development committee can be really, really helpful. I have a podcast episode from some time back talking about how to utilize development committees in a way that is helpful to the organization. And one of the ways is to have them play a significant role in events. And this is a good example of that. Okay. So get your sponsors, figure out what it's going to cost for people to come. Obviously, you have your date and all of that. That goes without saying, your date, your time, all of that. And then you promote the event, sending it out to your email list. Your board can play a significant role in selling tickets. Maybe you charge every board member with selling one table or two tables, depending on how large or small your board is. And those tables can be sold to companies, right, to be table sponsors, or there are individuals that will buy a table and have their friends come. And let me add a little sidebar here when it comes to sponsorships. And I'm not going to get into great detail about this because the whole purpose of me sharing this with you is to give you some shortcuts, if you will, and tips on how to maximize this so that you generate the revenue you're going to generate and how you can enhance major gifts, which I'm going to get to. But you want to make sure that you have, that you obviously get sponsorships, all of that, and the date and everything you're promoting, and you're ready to go. Okay. And have your board help you. Assuming that you sell everything, and let's say that you sell about $75,000 worth of tickets, there's your net. The event hasn't even happened yet, and you've already secured what you said you were going to secure. That's why it's really critical to get every single expense covered by sponsorships. And then set your ticket price and then start selling the tickets and have your board assist in pushing that out. Now I could stop here, right? And there's your answer. Very straightforward. And you'd be surprised, at least I've been surprised, at how many organizations don't follow this formula. They don't get their cost covered by sponsors first. They want their cost to be covered by participants. And that is not the best way to go because you're really just missing an opportunity, one for corporate sponsors to be able to leverage the goodwill with you as an organization and what you do, because they're going to love to pay to be a part of this. So give them that opportunity. Third, and the most important part of fundraising events, from my perspective, is this: pay attention to who's in the room. Because many times, nonprofit organizations will have an event and it'll be over. Maybe they net 15, 20,000 because they didn't do any of the things that I'm talking about here. They celebrate and then they move on. But if you have a room filled with people that meet link, interest, and ability, because part of the information that you're going to collect from people who are attending the event is their name and address, along with their phone number and email. Got their address and you are engaged in wealth screening already, then you're going to screen everybody that's coming to the event. Or you may have already screened people that you invited to the event. So now let's say, for sake of discussion, of the 200 people that are coming, 30 of them are people with high capacity. I mean, significant capacity. You don't want them to just come to this event and then leave. That's very transactional. Because those people, they've paid for their single ticket or their table. And it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not a lot of money to them. So they're happy to pay it. They're happy to support. But you got to pay attention to who's in the room. And what I mean by that is take a look at the list of people who said they're going to come, because you're going to have that information way ahead of time. You're going to be able to do wealth screening way ahead of time. And then you're going to sit down as a team, executive director, board members, director of development, and you're all going to look at the list, and you may find those 30 people that I'm talking about. And then you're all going to assign each other people to connect with at the event. I call this seed planting. And what you're simply going to do is, at the event, let's say each person, let's say you've got 6 people, each of them have 5 people that they've got to connect with. 5 people or 5 couples or five giving units, however you want to look at it, that you're going to connect with before the night is through. And your job is simply this: walk up to those people or that person. Hi, my name is so and so. Thank you so much for coming, to this event. We really appreciate it. This is going to be a great night. I'm so glad that you're here. Are you having a good time? And then you're going to ask this question: I would love to find some time with you to meet and talk with you about some of the things that we're doing here, and to give you an update on what's happening. Would it be okay if I give you a call to schedule a time to have coffee. If you're in a festive environment, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, absolutely, absolutely. Call me, call me next week. Call me and tell them I'm going to give you a call next week. I'll probably call you on Monday or Tuesday. That's it. And you're going to do that with all 30 people. Everybody's going to hit everybody that they're assigned to. Here's why you do this. That person may have paid $250 to come to the event, but they've got the capacity to give your organization $25,000, $50,000. So you're going to take advantage of having all these people in the same place. And you're going to do that seed planting, and you're going to follow up no sooner than 2 days, no later than 10 days. And you're going to reach out to them. You're going to call. You're going to set up that coffee, and you're going to start the process of building a relationship with them if you don't already have one. Make the case, make the ask, close the deal. That is how events can level up your major gifts. When you've got high capacity people in the room, you're going to take advantage of that by doing the seed planting. It will make all the difference in the world. You will turn a $250 ticket into a $25,000 gift if you take that step. So make sure that you have a budget, a net budget for your event. Make sure you get all your costs covered with sponsorships, 100% covered through sponsorships. And then make sure you pay attention to who's in the room and do that seed planting. If you do all of these things, you will have the best event, and pay attention to the gifts that you will secure because you started to develop that relationship at the event by doing the seed planting. So that's it. That is my secret sauce, if you will, for how to do events successfully and how to have those events level up your major gifts. I hope this has been helpful to you because you got a lot here today that I typically will teach to clients. In fact, that's what you've gotten today is just a snippet of what's in my course and what you learn in my academy. So I hope this has been helpful. And as always, this fundraising thing, it's not about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that you serve. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time.